Hello, and welcome to another episode of Net Wins. This time we're talking about Tim Duncan. The formula puts Duncan number two all time, and here is the case. Most ranking lists put Duncan somewhere between 8th and 15th all time. The Net Wins formula puts him second. The gap between those two conclusions is not a rounding error, it's not a quirk. It's the formula doing exactly what it's designed to do, measuring what actually happened over a full career rather than what the cultural narrative says should have happened. Here's the complete case. He had 133 regular season wins, 10 and a half in the playoffs, or a combined 143.5, averaging 7 per season, 10.49 at his peak season in 2005 to 2006, and in his top three seasons averaged 9.74. 19 seasons played, 4 championships, 15 All-Star selections, 3 Finals MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs, and the highest per season average net wins of any player in the entire database. Tim Duncan played 19 NBA seasons, every one of them with the Spurs, every one of them as the most important player on a winning team. When you run the net wins formula across those 19 seasons, the output is almost monstrosity excellent. You know what's not on that list? A negative season, a wasted year, a season below 3.5 wins. In 19 NBA seasons, Tim Duncan never had a bad year. His worst season by net wins, his final year at age 40 on a 67-win Spurs team, was 3.66. For context, that would be a career year for most NBA players. That consistency is what the formula is measuring. When it produces a 7 average per season, it is the highest average in the database, not the highest peak. Jordan and Wilt have higher individual season peaks, not the highest career total. Kareem's 20 seasons edge him out in a raw accumulation, but the highest average sustained across the longest continuously excellent career in the history of the sport. 5 championship runs added 10.45 playoff net wins to his career total. The 2013-14 run is worth noting specifically. Duncan was 38 years old. He went 20-8 in the playoffs, produced 2.38 net wins, and pushed the Heat to 7 games in the finals. That is one of the great late career performances in playoff history, and the formula captures it exactly. The conventional ranking, where he's 8th to 15th, depending on the list, reflects 3 cultural biases that the net wins formula has no interest in. The first is style points. Duncan played power forward and center in an era that celebrated athleticism and highlight plays. He scored off bank shots and mini-range jumpers. He set screens. He made the right pass. He was, by every observable measure, the most fundamentally sound player of his generation. The fundamental soundness does not generate highlights. The formula doesn't watch film. It counts what happened. The second bias is era discounting. He played during a period when the league was transitioning away from big men. The conventional wisdom said his style was outdated even while he's winning championships with it. The formula has no opinion about whether his style was aesthetically appropriate for his era. It just sees a player whose contributions converted into wins at a higher per season rate than anyone in the database. The third bias is the Jordan, LeBron gravity well. Any ranking conversation that starts from the premise that Jordan is number 1 and LeBron is number 2 is already constrained. Duncan doesn't fit neatly into the narrative about the 2 greatest players ever, so lists that are structured around that narrative tend to push him down. The formula starts from 0. It has no narrative. What's the honest counter-argument? Strongest case against Duncan at number 2 is the team context argument. He played his entire career in San Antonio under Greg Popovich, arguably the greatest coach in NBA history, alongside Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, 2 Hall of Famers. The Spurs system was specifically designed to maximize player efficiency and minimize negative actions. This is a real point. The net wins formula normalizes against the team's win rate, which means Duncan benefited from playing on consistently excellent Spurs teams. His per season average would likely be lower if he spent his career in a rebuilding franchise, but this argument proves too much. Jordan benefited from playing alongside Pippen and Rodman under Phil Jackson's triangle offense. LeBron engineered super teams specifically to improve his context. Bird had McHale and Parrish. Magic had Kareem. Every great player's numbers reflect their context. That's not a flaw in the formula, it's a feature. We evaluate the players' careers, the we evaluate them based on the careers they actually had, not hypothetical careers on worse teams. Duncan's context was excellent because he helped make it excellent for 19 seasons. That's the point. The gap between this formula's ranking and the conventional consensus is the second largest such gap in the top 20 behind only Scottie Pippen. Every major system recognizes Duncan as an all-time great. The disagreement is about whether he belongs in the top 3 or the top 10. The net wins formula's answer that the highest per season average in the database belongs in the top 3 seems like a more defensible position. Tim Duncan once said, I don't need to be the man. I just need to be what I am. And what I am is someone who does what it takes to win. People talk about what I can't do. I can't run. I can't jump. I'm not athletic. What they don't talk about is what I can do. And what I can do is win. Greg Popovich once said, Tim Duncan's the best power forward who ever played the game. I don't think it's particularly close. What he does that nobody talks about is he makes everybody around him better. Not by being flashy, but by always being exactly where he's supposed to be every single possession for 20 years. Kevin Garnett once said, I played against a lot of great players. Tim Duncan's the one I least wanted to face in a playoff series, not because he was going to do one spectacular thing, because he was going to do everything right, every possession for 7 games. That wears you down. Kobe said, he's the most complete player I ever saw. People forget how good he was on defense, how good he was passing out of the post, how many different ways he could beat you. He just didn't care about being recognized for it. That's a different kind of greatness. Tim Duncan spent 19 seasons being underrated in real time, and he spent the years since his retirement being underrated in retrospect. The narrative about him has never quite caught up to what the numbers say. The net wins formula doesn't know who Tim Duncan is. It doesn't know he played in San Antonio, or that he banked in mid-range jumpers, that he once said, I'm just a regular guy from St. Croix. It sees 19 seasons of a player whose positive contributions converted into team wins at a rate no one else in the database has matched, sustained from his rookie year to his final season at age 40. Second all time. I've compiled 5.5 combined net wins behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who played 20 seasons to Duncan's 19. The formula says these are the 2 greatest players in NBA history. That conclusion is uncomfortable for a culture that spent 30 years debating Jordan versus LeBron. It deserves to be taken seriously. Look to see